Well, good morning, everybody and anybody. Yesterday, it was a beautiful day here, and right around 5 o'clock or so, this happened. So if you ride your bike to work or something on a beautiful day, and you have to ride home in this, what do? Just as a disclaimer, I am not suggesting you ride in the snow or promoting riding in the snow, but sometimes you're trying to get the most out of your riding season, or a freak snowstorm comes in or something and you're stuck with this. That's what this video is for. Make sure that you stick around for the whole video, because all of this is kind of intertwined together. All the techniques and all of the suggestions and everything is kind of melded together. It all works as one. So please watch it till the end. I've got my crash bar extensions on today in case I biff it down here. This will be more than just the basic tips of just take it slow, nice and easy and all of that. I've got a few things that are a little bit more than that you may not have even heard before. I do apologize for stating some of the obvious, but it has to be said. So let's get right into it. So the bottom line here is basically not to exceed the traction of your tires. Everything that you do on a motorcycle requires traction. It requires traction to start, stop, to correct, and keep the bike upright. But this is a game of balance here, because the bike also requires momentum to stay upright as well. The more momentum you have, the more you're going to need traction. So the first step is, yes, take it slow. This is really just a no-brainer. You don't want to be going too fast to not be able to stop. Forgive me for stating the obvious, but yes, step one is to take it slow. So now we got to get the bike moving. Now the problem is you've got a lot of engine compared with a lightweight bike. You simply don't have the downward pressure to get the traction that you need. With this overpowered engine, this rear tire is just going to want to spin. Now this problem is a very easy fix. You simply apply a small amount of rear brake. Let me demonstrate. So now let's talk about stopping. Now before you stop, you have to slow down. So to get slowed down, you want to try to avoid the front brake. We'll get into that in a minute. But in this situation, the rear brake is the one that you want to use. You also want to utilize some downshifting and using your engine as well. You don't want to downshift when you've got high RPMs. You want to keep those RPMs down so that things can be smooth. And the reason why the rear brake is more preferred over the front brake now, it's kind of backwards, because usually your front brake is the one that does 80% of the stopping power. But in this situation, the rear brake is going to do a better job at stopping you and keeping you in control. The reason is that there's a chain hooked to this tire, and there isn't a chain hooked to that tire. Because there's no way to utilize your engine, this brake will lock up a lot easier. In slick conditions, you have a lot more power that you can use from the brakes than you can on the contact patch, which makes this tire very easy to lock up. And given that this tire is the one that corrects you to keep your balance, once this tire stops moving, you can no longer correct the bike to keep it upright. Now the rear brake, on the other hand, does not have anything to do with your balance or correction. There are no handlebars on this tire. And this tire is connected to the engine, whether it be by a chain or a belt or a shaft. There are two different things that control the movement of this tire: brakes and the engine. Now with the engine turning, that tire won't lock up when you hit the brakes. It kind of bogs the engine down a bit. But in order to get that tire to stop turning, you'll have to kill the engine. So this takes a little bit of finesse to figure out how that works. Now in order to lock up that rear tire, you either have to kill the engine or simply disengage the clutch. Now this is where the clutch and your rear tire and engine all have a little bit of a relationship here. I'm going to try to explain this the best that I can. If you're riding on slick conditions like this, and you're trying to do everything right, you're not using your front brake, you pull this clutch in, and you hit that rear brake, your back tire is going to lock up. To avoid that, you keep the engine engaged when you use the brake. You do not use that brake unless the engine is engaged. So using the engine as well as the clutch and the brake, that also works really well when you're going up a hill, because with the rear brake and the engine engaged, the tire won't slip out from underneath you. Now the front brake is not off limits. The front brake can be used, but you're going to have to use your discretion. Obviously on something like this, you wouldn't use it. So the next thing that we kind of need to cover is the curvature of the road. Now I can't really demonstrate this on this road, so I'm going to have to draw some pictures. This is a picture of a road, of course. It looks like it's flat, but it's not. Now most roads have a slant to either side to let rainwater wash off, and probably for other reasons as well. But the point is that it is slanted on either side. But there are other curvatures that happen in a majority of roads that are caused by just wear and tear of cars going over them. And those look a bit like this. Not all roads will have these. A newer road usually won't, but an older road will have these very slight dips and bumps in them. Now there is a slant out here. Now hopefully I don't crash doing this. Now this is difficult to see, but this right here does have a slight slant to the right. And so I'm going to try not to crash, but I'm going to go forward a little bit and I'm going to hit the front brakes. Yep, that's what I thought would happen. Okay, so for demonstration purposes, that actually worked out just fine. So even though you can't really see the slant on this road, when I braked, my tire instantly started to slide out from under me. It did not take much to do that, even in the slightest. And this is why those curvatures in the road matter. Because even though those small dips might be slight, where you ride on the road is important. So riding on the slants like this, where you're riding about in this part of the road, that may not be the best place in the road to ride. Now I usually try to ride in this area, because if you ride in these areas, those tires might just slide right out, just like what happened here. Now the downside, it's not always a safe place to ride, because if for some reason you get fluctuations in temperature or whatever, this is exactly where the ice is going to form. And so there's times when it's not a good spot to ride. You'll have to use your own discretion. So now that kind of brings us to the next point here. Now these are things that you can just keep in mind, and this is the bottom line. Because really the important thing is that you get your bike home in one piece and that you get home without getting hurt. So if it snows on you while you're at work, or for some reason you get stuck riding in conditions like this, the very first thing that you should do is look for another option other than riding your bike on it. It may be worth just calling someone, having them come pick up your bike, giving you a ride home, if that is an option. You may just want to leave your bike at work. Maybe there's like a garage section that you can put it in, or you can wheel it in the threshold of a door somewhere. See if there's an option for that. Maybe think of a different road that you can take. A road that's maybe a gravel road, one that's a little less traveled, where you might have more traction on it. The whole point is to just think of other options other than riding your bike in the snow. It's not something that should be done if you have another option. Another thing is that you can always change your mind. If you do decide to ride and the conditions start to get more iffy than you thought, stop and think of your options again. Because there are other hazards out there too. You've got your lens can either be more likely to fog, or you can get road slime all over it to where you can't see. You will be tailgated, almost guaranteed, because you will be going slower than all the other traffic. And if you go down and they can't stop, you know. So if you do get stuck in the snow, I hope these tips kind of help. I apologize if I didn't explain them very well. It's kind of hard to explain how to do it. It's a little harder to explain than I thought it was going to be honest with you. And there is no guarantee that they are going to keep you safe. You're going to have to use your own discretion. But hopefully if you do get stuck in some slicker weather or whatever, I hope that these tips work for you. I'm sure that that's not the only tips and tricks, so if you have a tip or a trick that you use or would like to suggest, go ahead and put it down in the comments. You know, we want to just try to keep people being safe and from getting hurt and stuff. So that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you next time. You know, make sure you let... Shoot. Man, this is so hard to explain. Once this it's not a stire.